Okay, boys and girls, today we are learning how to do 1-point perspective with letters. If you look here, I wrote the word space. I'm going to try to make it look like these letters are 3D, that they have a thickness to them, a front, side, top, bottom thickness, like cubes have thicknesses, right? So what you need is your paper. You can tape it down with 2 little pieces of tape. You need a piece of cardboard that you tape it onto. You need to write your name and your class code. You need to ask me for a thumbtack and a piece of string with a knot on the end. And the string is about 8.5 inches, the width of the paper there. What you need to do first is to skewer your knot right through the middle. And put your thumbtack right in the middle of that vanishing point, that black dot. Okay. This string will swing to, depending on which letter you're working on, it will help us to connect and make our lines of perspective. Some of you may have learned how to do this already, and you've learned how to do it with a ruler. I think it's a little easier for beginners to start out with a string because the ruler sort of gets in our way, makes it hard to see some of the details. The string doesn't get in our way. Let's work on the S first. I'll cover it up. You don't need to do that, but I'll cover it up for the video so that we can just concentrate on one. Let me just tape it down. It's kind of popping up too much. One letter at a time, okay? All right, so you take your string, and it's like the hands of a clock. It spins around the middle in any way we want, right? Take it way up here by your name and swing it down until it touches your letter. The very first place it touches, you want to stop. And you want to draw a line right along your string, okay? That line is just like your string. It's parallel to it. Good, so that's one of the vanishing point connections. All right, then you want to look at corners too, like any place where there's a corner, put a dot on it so you can attempt to attach it. But you don't want to draw a line through your letter S. So if you find yourself drawing a line through your letter S, you stop. I can connect it here, but only a little bit. I have to stop. See how I stopped right there? Okay. If I connect this dot, I have to draw right through my S. So that's a no-no. We don't do that one. I'll just put an X on there just so you know. Okay, we can try one of the other ones. We come from this direction. And the first thing we hit is that curve right there. So go ahead and draw your line going to the vanishing point a little ways. Okay, now we'll try these 2 sharp corners. Oh, that one will work. And then we go to the next one. Okay. I believe that we have connected everything that we can. Anything else would make us draw through our S. We don't want to do that. Okay, now you're wondering, okay, that's cool, but where do we go from there? Now it gets tricky. Now you have to add parallel lines which imitate the curves or the straight edges of the letters. Well, where do you do that? Any place where you're showing the thickness of the letter. So if I'm showing the thickness of the letter right in here, I'm going to have to do a parallel line. All right. Let me use a highlighter marker so you can see what I'm concentrating on. I have to copy this curve right here. Copy it again. So it goes like that. Somewhere up here, you got to copy it. Slight curve, right? I could make it thinner so it's not such a big thick letter. It really is up to you. Okay, let's go with the thick. So if I erase that line by accident, I can hand draw it in. All right, now it gets a little tricky. Now I have to try to imitate this straight line, and it has to be parallel. Remember, straight lines can run in any direction diagonally, but they never touch. They stay the same distance apart. So here's a tricky thing. How do I make that shape here? Well, let's start with a corner and try to imitate that line. Something like that. And we can get rid of those extra lines. We don't need those anymore. All right, well, what about the rest of it? We're showing some thickness here. So we've got to imitate whatever's in here. We've got to repeat it, a parallel line. But we stop when we start to draw through the letter. We stop right there. We don't go any further. So we're imitating this curve right here. And we stop. If we kept going, it would go like that, right? But we're not going through our letter. So now we have the thickness drawn. And you have to ask yourself, okay, well, this is pretty thick here, but this is even thicker there. I wonder if I need to make this a little thicker. My guess is probably yes, so we'll just make it a little thicker. And we'll get rid of that old curved line. And what we have now is a 3D going to the vanishing point block letter. I'm going to shade it in so that you can start to see the potential for looking totally cool and very real. Okay, so this would probably be in shadow. Trying to draw sideways here, so excuse my mistakes. All right, and this would be in shadow, all in here. Okay, and this might be in shadow too, but maybe not as dark. And then this side, let's just decide that it's going to be really in dark shadow. Okay? That one's done. Let's move on to the next one. Same thing here. Exactly the same thing. Connect your vanishing point with the thumbtack and the string. Rotate your string like the hands of a clock, whichever direction you want them to go in. You can go backwards or clockwise, whatever, but you want to rotate it until it touches the very first part of your P. And that's where it touches, right there. Okay, so we just copy the line. Okay, let's add some dots wherever there's a corner. There's a corner there, corner there, corner there. Let's see if we can connect any of those without, what was the rule? Without drawing through our letter. This one allows me to draw straight out into that white space, so I'm not drawing through my letter. This one right here lets me draw just that far, and then I have to stop. This one, let's try connecting it. Uh-oh, what's the problem there? We'd have to draw through the P, so we don't use that. I'll just put an X in it. You can do that too if you really want to, but it's not necessary. Okay, now we got this curve that we have to connect to. So I always say, well, just have your clock hand do. Keep moving and moving until it touches the first part of that curve. That's what you connect, the first part of that curve. Okay? I think we're all done at this point, connecting things to the vanishing point. Oh, there might be one little spot there. Well, there's a corner and there's a corner. Let's see if we can connect any of those. Actually, we can. We can't connect this one because look, we'd be drawing right through our P. But this little guy right here, we can draw a tiny sliver of a line. You can barely see it. All right, now we're done with that string. Okay, here comes the tricky part. Parallel lines. We can do straight parallel lines where there's a straight line, and then curved parallel lines where there's curved lines. Let's do one here. We've got a straight line, so somewhere further along we can make a straight line. Here's an example of a typical mistake. When students do this, they'll think they're doing a parallel line and they wind up with something like this. Okay? These two lines are not parallel. How do I know that? Because I imagine that if I just extended them out further, they would eventually touch each other. That's not a parallel situation. Parallel lines never touch. They stay the same distance apart. Okay, like these guys do. So you don't want that. Always check. So parallel to this would be something like this. These two lines right here would never touch because they're the same distance apart. It would go off in infinity. Who says you're not going to use math someplace else other than math? We're using some of the things that you learned probably in 4th grade about parallel lines. Okay, now comes the tricky part. We have to copy this curve only this curve right to that spot right there. We have to copy this curve somewhere along in here. Oh, look at that. There's a corner there I forgot all about. It's so tiny. Let me get that. Okay, it barely even shows. All right, so let's copy this curve. You can practice it over here. Okay, so here we go. From here to here, we're copying. Okay, and then this little tiny line here would go somewhere right about there. Does that make sense? And we've got a little guy showing there, got a little sliver showing there. Okay, get rid of the extra lines that are left over, and we have our block letter with our P. We can go ahead and shade it in if it helps us to understand it better. Until it gets to your corner. And where it touches that corner, draw your connecting line. Okay? Start from the other side. Rotate it until you've hit the first spot you can on your A. Right there. That's where it touches it first. See that? I'll do it again. There she goes, right there. Creating a curved parallel line. So if we start here, it would go like this, and curve, and it would go like that. Okay? This thickness right here, it would go underneath of that part of the A. You can't really see where it would end. None of this would be able to, none of these I can imitate. Okay? So I get rid of my connecting lines and I do some shading. Okay, start up by your name, rotate it counterclockwise until you touch the outside edge of the C, and then draw your line. Okay? All right, go from the other direction. Okay, start over here. Rotate clockwise until you touch the very first part of the C that you encounter. It's that corner that we could have put a dot on. Okay, so here come our parallel lines. this is the curve that I have to imitate. All right, start at a corner, copy the first part that you see. I see this, and then it starts to curve that way. How's that look? I think it's good. Get rid of your connecting lines that you don't need anymore because they're too long. And go ahead and shade it in. We'll just concentrate on that E. All right, so it's not a perfect system. The thumbtack keeps popping out. Just be patient. Maybe we can put it in at an angle. See that angle? It's not straight up and down, right? It's at an angle. Maybe that'll hold better if I do that. There. See, you can't even get the thumbtack to go in all the way because it's at an angle like this as opposed to this. That might hold better. Okay. Start at your name, rotate counterclockwise until you touch your first part of your letter. And there, that's where it touches right there. Draw a connecting line that imitates your string. Okay, let's put some dots on those corners. See if we can connect any of those. All right, now we start from the other direction. Rotate it, rotate it, rotate it until, there we go, touches the E right there. Okay, now while we're here, let's see if we can connect this to any of our corners. There's a corner there. Yeah, we can connect it for just a little while, and then we have to stop. How about that one? Can we connect that one? No, we'd have to draw through our E. How about this one? Can we connect it? Let's try. Oh, we can draw a little tiny line right there. And that's about it. We can't do that one. We'll be drawing right through our E. Okay. So, one last tricky parallel line. That's the shape that we're going to imitate. Okay, how thick do we make it? We might as well do it about the same thickness as our others. So somewhere out in here. Okay, we could start from the middle if we wanted instead of the edges. But then we still have to have it curve. Even though it seems like a ridiculous curve, it still has to curve exactly like the original shape. So this thickness right here, from here to here, should be the same thickness as there or there. You know, if I drew arrows there, you could see what I'm talking about with the thickness. All right, that thickness right here, from here to here, that thickness should be the same as that one and that one and that one. You see what I mean? Okay, so I'll get rid of those arrows. They're not necessary anymore. I'll get rid of my extra connecting lines. I'll fix anything I erased by accident. And I can shade it in. And now we have the word space connected to the vanishing point. All the sides lead to the vanishing point. All those edges lead to the vanishing point. And we can do this with boxes. We could do this with buildings. We could do this with cars. You know, like you had the front of the car drawn here. We connect the sides and everything would go off. It would show the thickness of the tires. That's what artists use, this technique. 1 point perspective.